literally right off the freeway. Take the fast lane to savings with 25% off online orders. Order now at highway80.com. Highway80.com. License number C100000821.
Looking for some outdoor family fun this winter? Adventure is in full supply at Quarry Park Adventures. Quarry Park is home to an adventure park where you can zip line, rock climb, rappel, and lots more. There's fun for everyone at Quarry Park, from 3-year-olds to active seniors. Give the gift of adventure this holiday season at Quarry Park in Rockland. Looking for some outdoor family fun this winter? Adventure is in full supply at Quarry Park Adventures. QuarryPark.com. QuarryPark.com.
Take a load off your mind this holiday season and get your heater checked out before family comes to town. This is Susan Wright from Fox Family Heating and Air, and now is the time to get that unit inspected and repaired before everyone gets comfy in your house for the holidays. I trust the Fox family and have for years. They're the only company I'll hire to get my unit cleaned and inspected. You won't find a more straightforward and honest company in Sacramento. And when you use Fox Family Heating and Air, your family will thank you. Talk with them today. Visit foxfamilyhvac.com. That's foxfamilyhvac.com. We love helping you save time and money. Get the week's best deals for the same prices in-store as you'll find online at Rayleigh's.com. Like this week's Rayleigh's Fresh Whole Bone-In Pork Shoulder Roast sold in the bag on sale for only 97 cents a pound. And get locally grown red seedless grapes for only $1.97 a pound. Stock up and save big on all your holiday essentials with very merry values store-wide. Flavorful festivities, fantastic savings. Only at Rayleigh's in Bel Air. Do you ever think of getting Botox?
I get it every 3 months. I don't want to be looking any older. No, seriously, we can age gracefully and naturally. Aesthetics uses laser and other injections to help slow down the aging process.
I can't tell you get Botox.
That's the idea. It's supposed to look natural, but better.
Allure Skin and Laser will help all dermatological and aging needs. Laser hair removal, laser tattoo removal, Botox, filler, all overseen by board-certified dermatologists. The special someone in your life will love a gift card from Allure Skin and Laser, offering hair rejuvenation for hair loss, full dermatology skin exams. Allure Skin and Laser also carries the top names in medical-grade skincare. Stop in or call Allure Skin and Laser in Granite Bay and get a 25% bonus on every gift card purchased. Google Allure Skin and Laser in Granite Bay.
Seriously, we can age gracefully and naturally. Aesthetics uses laser and other injections to help slow down the aging process.
That's my idea of a gift. My husband is getting the tax too. I love a man who takes care of himself.
Google Allure Skin and Laser in Granite Bay.
KCC Hired with Indeed. Our hiring platform makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates all in one place. Find your next great hire and visit Indeed.com/credit.
Twas a holiday evening and all through the house, everyone was bored. Even the hamster Klaus. The TV was blaring with reruns galore. Grandma and Grandpa were competing to snore. Then holiday scratches came from the stocking, and peppermint payout got the whole house rocking. It was a moment of fun that gave them a reason to get holiday scratches. They're the gift of the season. The California lottery helped them find a way, because a little play can make your day.
Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C Sports. This is Charlton with Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to people who love sports and the California lottery. It's all fair and love war. I won! That's what I hear. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful day today. It's a beautiful December the 8th, 2021. Broadway Deportes, Bonjour, Divice. Man, I'm trying to learn my hooked on phonics, but sometimes I think that it gets stuck in translation. If that makes sense to you. But I love saying welcome to the show. Today is beautiful Wednesday, December the 8th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, Bonjour. Now I got it. Now I think I got it right. As I say, welcome to the show all around the world. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. Big C Sports now is available on 19 podcast applications. You got to give that some praise. I said 19 podcast applications. Give that some praise. 19 podcast applications really do appreciate the growth all around the world of Big C Sports on Google, Alexa, Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeart-Radio Podcast, Castbox Podcast, Deezer Podcast, Podcast Addict, Pod Chaser, and again, I gotta catch my breath, gotta take the time to pause. Man, I'm learning how to catch my breath as I get on the platforms that we're growing on. Geo Savon Podcast out of London, England. Podtail Podcast, YouTube Podcast, on the Hubhopper Podcast, also Stitcher Podcast, Radio Line Podcast, Repod Podcast, Luminary Podcast, and another one that's just been added is called Listen Notes Podcast. Give that praise. I said, give that some praise on Listen Notes Podcast. That's 19 podcasts. Actually, it's supposed to be on Facebook Podcast. This is going to be called Meta Podcast. That'll be 20 podcast applications. Really do appreciate that. All you got to do is say play Big C Sports Podcast. And then also on television, you can actually find Big C Sports on television, considering doing some streaming in 2022. Right now, you can find us on Xfinity Comcast TV. You can find Big C Sports on Apple TV. You can follow Big C Sports on Amazon Fire TV and Roku TV. So a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Give that some praise. On 4 TV applications and 19 podcast applications. That's a lot more than I had when we started Big C Sports back in 2015. I always love paying homage to my family legacy. From my great-grandmother, called her Mamo, the matriarch of the family, with my grandfather, Pop. He was the patriarch of the family, former Eagle League baseball player. And then my grandmother, Madia, one of the best grandmothers in the history of the universe. A very good seer. And my grandfather, Hezekiah, also a very good man. And my beautiful mother helped start a Head Start program in Northern California and helped win the Little League Championship of the universe. Give that some praise. Give that some praise. The Head Start program and the Little League Championship of the universe. Really appreciate it. Mama's always stand rise and shine. Really do appreciate that. On my father's side, the patriarch of the family, his name was Albert Curry, owned 2 service stations in Oakland, California, and 2 churches in Oakland, as well as built the 3rd church in Central California. And then my grandmother, Alberta Curry, helping my grandfather, Albert Curry, with the churches and also with the gas stations and keeping the family strong. And then my father, retired Air Force fighter pilot for the United States Air Force, and also he was a chief sergeant of the mechanics. So really do appreciate that. My brother Todd, with his bombastic voice, always speaking loud like a thunderstorm and lightning. My beautiful son Malcolm helps me with NBA stats. Really knows a lot about what's going on as a college student all over the world of NBA basketball. And my daughter Daisy helped me set up sporting events in the past with coaches that came to the West Coast. And then Big C with his wealth of knowledge in the past. Give us all some praise. Love that, give us praise. And my pastor keeps saying, give us praise, praise, praise. Love giving praise. As I love saying with Big C Sports, let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. And I love that. Kind of gets me going. That coffee was a little bit too strong, but ESPY nominated Big C Sports Podcast by Disney. I believe you'll see Big C Sports get an award for the ESPYs when the ESPYs happen for 2022 based on 2021 shows. No scripts, no 3-way teleprompters, no producer in my ear. I do this show with my higher self with the help that I get from my family, etc. Number one, what I love about doing Big C Sports Podcast, I love media. I've been in media for a long time, about almost 30 years now, is I produce the show. I direct all the topics. I broadcast every show. I do all of the sound effects based on what's provided by the agency. Laugh all you want. I still do the sound effects provided by the agency. And then I do the commercials that are pre-roll and post-roll that are done out of the agency in New York City. I provide the stats. I do all the storytelling, and then I do the play-by-play like Steph Curry for 3. You'll start hearing that more as we get deeper into NBA basketball. I do the uploading of the show. It goes out to 19 multiple podcast platforms. I'm hearing it's really 20, and then 4 TV platforms, and that's all over the world with Big C Sports Podcast. Really love that very much. I love honoring God. I'm probably the only sports show in the universe that pays homage to God. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Genesis 13:15. It says, "For all the land that thou seest will I give you, and thy seed forever." In the book of James chapter 4, verse 2, said, "We have not because we ask not." So if you want something, just ask. Always give the Bible some praise. I love giving it praise for this thing. God bless you. Give it praise. Learn some scriptures and some chapters, especially when it talks about Christ. Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 9 and 10 and 6. Google it. That's your homework assignment. I also love giving out our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Everybody's going through something, especially with COVID. We know it's there. And some people, I love what athletes are doing. They keep talking about a crisis hotline to get a checkup from the neck up. We all need that. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones. That includes me. That includes you. Get some help. Pick up the phone. Call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text. A lot of young people like to text now. That's 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net and get some help. Give our veterans some praise and get our first responders some praise. When you call that number, somebody has to pick up the phone. Really do appreciate that. Also, very happy to be affiliated with, I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, Comcast Spotlight, Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, God said, we let there be light. Open your cell phone and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see our app pop up from all over the world. Really, all over the world, you can follow Big C Sports Podcast. And I thank God for that opportunity. Also, for the world of real estate, love being affiliated with ValleyHomesWeekly.com. And that's a great real estate program. You can Google that for your neck of the woods. Also, the NationalRealEstatePost.com if you want to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. And then for MortgageDailyNews.com if you want to find out about mortgage rates all over the country, just go to those websites. You can find out more. Also, if you want more information, just call 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. And then ask what's going on in the world of real estate. Looking to recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this country. There's a lot of good connections, having a lot of good meetings on how to make that happen. Really appreciate mixing real estate and sports together, if we could do this all over the country, and I really do appreciate that with Big C Sports. So give that some more praise. Give that praise. Real estate and sports. Everybody's doing it. Rocket Mortgage sponsors a lot of loans, and United Wholesale Mortgage are on television on almost every sports show. I want to say thank you to Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol, but 100% on this game. Sports fans, when you're watching the big game, you want to eat it with a Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with all those exotic meats. Exotic meats means and I hear it tastes better in your mouth than it does in your hand. That's what I hear. Can't confirm or deny, but my burger tastes better in my mouth than it did in my hands. Got a lot of things to talk about today, especially in the world of NBA basketball. We know there's so many great games, and the season is always going to be surpassed, in my opinion, by NFL football season. I want to talk today about the NBA, the power rankings, tonight's schedule, and then I also want to get into a little bit of college basketball, some of the top teams in college basketball. And then I want to finish out by naming Big C Sports the College Football All-Americans. Give that some praise. The Big C Sports College Football All-Americans for college football. We'll figure that out as we get down the road. But tonight, Wednesday, December the 8th, 2021, is a big night for NBA basketball. Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Charlotte. They're at Charlotte tonight. Game's already underway. Chicago, the Bulls, having a good season. This is the Big C game because Chicago and Cleveland, they both start with C. I can spell a little bit. Okay, that makes sense to you. But that's the Big C game with Chicago Bulls at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Washington, they are at Detroit, the Detroit Bad Boys. New York Knickerbockers at the Indiana Pacers. Milwaukee, the defending NBA champion, Milwaukee Bucks, they are at Miami down there in the Heat. And be careful. When you're a Buck, be careful of getting too close to the Heat. Rumor has it that's how they get cooked. So, that's a stupid joke. Okay, it's all fair level. Yeah, I have a joke to tell you after I finish the roundup. Oklahoma City, I got to say this right. My producer, listen up. Oklahoma City Thunder, the OKC Thunder, they are actually on the road at the Toronto Raptors. And Toronto, they are passing a law where if you're not vaccinated, you cannot get into Canada. They're going to stop you at Niagara Falls. That's it. Brooklyn, they are at Houston. Houston's been playing a little good basketball lately. Dallas is at Memphis. Utah, they're at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver, they're at New Orleans. Portland, the Trailblazers up here in the Bay Area at the Golden State Warriors. That game tips off at 7 o'clock p.m. at the beautiful Chase Center. Going to be on ESPN broadcast. Orlando's at the Sacramento Kings at beautiful Golden West Center in Sacramento at 7 o'clock p.m. And Boston Celtics are at the LA Clippers down at the beautiful Chase Center. My pastor had a joke over the weekend. He said someone came to him and said, "Pastor, we have good news and we have bad news. He said, you want the good news first or the bad news? He said, well, give me the good news. He said, well, we know that we found a contractor that can fix the leaky roof on the church. He said, okay, well, that's good news. We found a contractor that can fix a leaky roof. You know, it rains every now and then in California. He said, what's the bad news? He said, the bad news is most of the money needed to fix it is still in your pockets. So I thought that was funny. Get out the grave. He said, most of the money is still in your pockets. Oh, they know they get grants. It's all fair and level war. Hey, I don't want to get anything thrown in the wrong direction, but I thought that was funny. Most of the money needed to fix it is still in your pockets. I'm going to talk about the NBA basketball power rankings for the beautiful week of right now. We're in December the 8th, 2021, all fair and level war. Just my opinion. Everybody has their own, but I'm going to go down some of the power rankings and some of the news in the NBA. Deandre, Ayton, and the Phoenix Suns. You know, they have Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Those good old boys are up on the top of things. They played a split last weekend. I'm still going to say they're probably neck and neck when it comes to basketball. In the Eastern Conference, Zach LaVine's Chicago Bulls, they won a couple of games to get on top just behind the New York Knicks. But I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. Again, this is as of this week, so I'm not going to count game by game. NBA basketball, you can be a good team and lose to a bad team, but I'm just going to start this week. Golden State Warriors coming in, that's number one in Big C's NBA power rankings when you have Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. They caught a glimpse of all the first team all season that they appear to be playing at their level. Phoenix Suns also at the same level with Golden State. Same kind of deep and talented rosters are going to make the top two early favorites for the Western Conference Championship. Now, I picked, not that it matters who I picked, but I did pick Golden State Warriors even before basketball started, before I tipped off, to at least make it to the Western Conference Championship. Who they meet there, I don't know. It may be the Lakers, could be Phoenix. Or I'm not going to say Utah. They always have a good record at Utah, but they tend to fall off ever since Karl Malone went over to the Lakers, and that's 2 decades ago. But I'm going to go with number one, Golden State Warriors. So because of that, they're going to get a lightning bolt of some praise. Give Golden State Warriors some praise at the beautiful Chase Center in San Francisco, California. Number two in Big C's NBA power rankings, the Phoenix Suns. Them good boys, without Devin Booker, had a hamstring issue. And then the Suns' franchise record, 18-game winning streak, came to an end last Friday against the Golden State Warriors up in San Francisco. And the Suns had beaten Golden State last Tuesday to finish off with a 16-0 mark. But when you think about how good they started, Golden State brought that to an end. They snapped the winning streak, as all fair and level war. But I think about how good they're playing under Coach Monty Williams. He's a great coach. And I'm telling you, this team, they didn't have a lot of pressure on them to get back to where they are right now because no one really expected they would get there last year. But Chris Paul's been doing a great job as a floor general on that team, and it's all fair and love and war. I'm going to also go to number three. The number one team in the Eastern Conference is the Brooklyn Nets. They remain atop the Eastern Conference, and they had combined 1-6 against team currently in the top 8 in the NBA standings, including some losses to Chicago, Miami, Phoenix, and Golden State at Barclays. But again, no Kyrie Irving also. If they had Kyrie Irving, maybe they would be my top team, but I'm going with Golden State still as a top team. And when you think about how good this team is in Brooklyn, outside of the top 10 teams, are 15-1 against those matchups. Number 4, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Oh, hold on. I picked up the wrong. That's an old note. My producer he had an old note. Let me get rid of that old note. It's not Michael Jordan. But remember those days, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. They always had that when Michael Jordan was playing. But this team is playing like Michael Jordan's still playing. The Bulls made an early season statement with a sweep at Staples Center and back-to-back nights. Their performance in New York to sweep the Knicks and the Nets last week was a worthy follow-up. Chicago's been rolling quite along nicely. Kobe White, Javonte Green have entered the NBA health and safety protocol. Alex Caruso also limited to just 8 minutes on Saturday because of a hamstring injury. Man, players got to stretch their hamstring. If anything, why do players always pull a hamstring? Stretch your hamstring. Just stretch it out before you go running up and down the court. Number 5, and people might feel that this is too low. The defending NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks. Give them some praise. The Milwaukee Bucks, I'm telling you, they are They're the third pick right now, but the season's still young. I know some people feel Milwaukee never gets respect even as an NBA champion and reigning NBA champions, but they'll get their chance. Just when the Bucks start rolling, their roster took a hit with Giannis Antetokounmpo sitting out back-to-back games with a right calf injury, but he'll be back in the saddle soon. Milwaukee is hopeful that this is going to be a short-term ailment for the King, Giannis Antetokounmpo, averaging 28 points a game, 12 rebounds per game, along with 6 assists per game, as well as 1.7 blocks per game. That good old boy can really play basketball. I'm going to go to the Wasatch Mountains. If you don't know where that is, that's the state of Utah. The Utah Jazz, number 6 in Big C's NBA power rankings. The Utah has by far the NBA's best 116 points per game per 100 possessions. That's 3.7 more than the second-ranked Golden State Warriors. And then Donovan Mitchell is in the midst of his best season, and he's averaged about 30 points to go along with 56% shooting during the Jazz's winning streak. And that's a good guy that can really get to the hole and also fill it in from three. Mitchell scored 30-plus points in the past 3 games, including a total of 30-point performances in his first 20 games. That's something else. He's a star player. Really love seeing him play. Number 7, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. The Miami Heat, number 7 in Big C's NBA power rankings. Miami was dealt the blow with the news that the great Bam Adebayo will miss some time after having thumb surgery. Jimmy Butler, who does this thing every night, is still dealing with a tailbone contusion as well, so they got to get some treatment for that. The Heat need to get healthy for an intriguing 3-game stretch. That includes some games against the Grizzlies, the Bucks, they're there tonight in Miami, and also the Bulls. So they really got to lace up their shoestrings and play well. A team that people might say, why Washington Wizards? Well, number 8 in Big C's NBA power rankings, the Washington Wizards have shown a little bit of ups and downs, topsy-turvy the last couple of weeks, but the Washington surrendered 116 points in both a 17-point loss to San Antonio and a 15-point loss to the Cavaliers. And Washington also trailed by as many as 36 to Cleveland. So why are they ranked high? The Wizards started a brutal 10-game stretch Sunday in Toronto, in which they will play 9 games on the road, and we'll find out more about how good they are. But I think they have a chance to at least maybe stay ahead of Philadelphia just right now, which might seem a little bit disappointing. But Philadelphia, number 9 in Big C's NBA power rankings. When you think Philadelphia and Philadelphia Freedom, Philadelphia Freedom. I don't want to butcher that song anymore than I already did. But I'm going to tell you, Philadelphia right now, they've dealt with more COVID-19 issues than any team has so far this season, including losing superstar center, the great Joel Embiid, with 9 games. That's why their win total's down. But now Embiid is back, and the 76ers have a chance to build consistency. That's why you see them down. When you think about Ben Simmons, that portal, and maybe a trade will materialize, but who's going to want to deal with them right now? Number 10 in Big C's NBA power rankings, the Memphis Grizzlies. Those good old boys can play. They've led their past 4 games wire to wire, and the first team to have such a streak in the 25 seasons since playing date has been tracked. According to a sports bureau called Elias, when you think about Ja Morant losing him to a knee injury, and they're still able to keep their play at a high level, that's a great job that Memphis is doing. You look at Tyus Jones, had 30 assists, only 4 turnovers during their winning streak. That's a good young team. All's fair and level with them. So that's Big C's top 10 in the NBA power rankings. Give that some praise. Give Big C's NBA power rankings some praise. Really love doing that. All's fair and love and war. I'm going to go now to number 11. They're on the West Coast swing. The Boston Celtics, the great Johnny Boris, really missed that voice, the great Boston Celtics emerged from the past few days of a really tough December with a pair of victories over Philadelphia and Portland. Got blown out in Los Angeles last night. Now they have another chance. Well, the Lakers blew them out, and now they have another chance to get back on the winning side against the LA Clippers. Don't know if that's going to happen. But that's also followed by a game in Phoenix. They may go 0-3 in the next couple of games. We'll see. The number 12 in Big C's NBA power rankings, the Atlanta Hawks, they fly high. The Hawks won 8 of their first 9 games inside of the great State Farm Arena, their past 3 home games. However, have not gone their way with losses to the Knicks, the 76ers, and then a 130-127 loss to COVID-19 depleted the Hornets. Can you believe that? And that was Sunday against Charlotte. Trae Young did have 25 points, 15 assists. His 11th 25-point, 15-assist night since he debuted in 2018. He's a star in the making, just needs to get to the weight room a little bit more, in my opinion. Number 13, Big C's NBA Power Rankings, the Charlotte Hornets. Those good boys, be careful when you see a Hornets nest. They can sting, from what I understand. You don't want to get stung by a Hornets nest. But Charlotte has a good team. They've been hit hard by health and safety protocols, as well as the great LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Mason Plumlee, and Jalen McDaniels all missed Sunday's game and will be out in the short term. The good news for the Hornets is that Miles Bridges is still active and offered another reminder on Sunday just how good he's going to be. He racked up 32 points, helping the Hornets snap a 3-game losing streak. The number 14 on Big C's NBA Power Rankings, the Dallas Mavericks, the Zgoda boys. Dallas has dropped 7 of 9 games since the great Luka Doncic sprained his left knee and ankle. The Mavs are 2-3 in the games that Doncic has played in that span, including blowout home losses to the Cavaliers and Pelicans. A little bit of frustration down in Texas, but they'll get him back as he gets on the mend, as well as Coach Jason Kidd will find a way to get the right lineup in to help Dallas start winning more games. Number 15 in Big C's NBA Power Rankings, I have Cleveland. This is for you. The great LeBron James said that term, so I like to say it that way as well. No moral victories in the NBA. The Cavaliers have a lot of growing to do this season. Look at Sunday's 109-108 loss to the Utah Jazz, as a game they would have won had they not gone 0-for-4 in the final 90 seconds. You go 0-for-4, you're not going to win many games in the NBA when it's a 2-possession game. Number 16 in Big C's NBA Power Rankings, going out to Southern California. Second favorite team, Los Angeles Clippers. When you think about the Clippers, this past week would have been a low point. They lost twice to the Sacramento Kings, including in Sacramento for the first time in 16 games. And they were blown out. I mean, Alvin Dritch is going to be a good coach for the Kings if he could just work with that team and get them on the right track. But they were blown out by the Pelicans. And Jonas Valanciunas, when you think about that, hit 7 threes, had 39 points, 15 rebounds. The Clippers have lost 7 of the past 10 games. They have Boston tonight to try to make things right. We'll see if they can. Number 17 in Big C's NBA Power Rankings. When you think about it, they had last year's MVP, Nikola Jokic. They're a good team, but they've been up and down this season. But I'm going to say they're number 17 seed right now. The Nuggets' fears confirmed when Michael Porter Jr. underwent lumbar spine surgery last week and will be out indefinitely. And the Nuggets still have the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic, the Joker. Denver lost 6 straight, but Nikola Jokic returned from injury and helped Denver beat the Heat in Miami. So that's going to help them get things on the right foot. Also, he had an MVP-like performance in the lone trip to Madison Square Garden, dropping 32 points with 11 rebounds in a win over the Knicks. He's going to have to carry that team like the MVPs have normally carried their team. I know on the West Coast, no one wants to hear this. Not making excuses. But LeBron James has been out of several games because of injury. Had an abdominal injury, then had an issue with COVID, a false positive test, even though they won that game over the Kings. But no getting around the fact that it's been a tough season in LA for the Lakers fan, the Laker faithful so far. There's a reason for optimism. Anthony Davis dropping 25 points or more in 4 of LA's past 7 games. He's a big guy down in the post, and he can also shoot threes. He's better when he plays inside out. Try to get into the rim first, then kick it out if it's not there. Also showing signs of being ready to carry the load. When you think about LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, they're going to get their groove together, most likely after the holiday season. Number 19, Big C's NBA Power Rankings. The Minnesota Timberwolves have had a grueling schedule in December. They're going to face just one opponent, the Denver Nuggets, with a record not currently above 500. They boasted a top 5 defense in the NBA thus far, which is they're going to need that to stay afloat if they're going to stay over the 500. Number 20, the New York Knickerbockers. The New York Knicks, after a blowout loss to the Nuggets, New York's 3rd loss in a row and 4th in its past 5 games. The Knicks talked about trying to find themselves moving forward. Maybe they're going to sign Spike Lee to be a point guard so he knows where the ball should go all the time. But when you think about it, dropping from 4th last season in defense to 19th this season, that's where they found their problems. They got to play defense to win. Another team that's going to come in at number 20 in Big C's NBA Power Rankings, I'm going to tie them for 20 with the New York Knicks, is the Portland Trailblazers. They're in San Francisco tonight, most likely going to get beaten by the Golden State Warriors. But it wasn't the best week for rookie coach Chauncey Billups, seeing general manager Neil Osley, the man who hired him, fired. The Blazers were blown out in 3 of 4 games. Damian Lillard missed 3 straight games, and CJ McCollum bruised his ribs. and now they got to play Golden State. Not a good sign for Portland. That's been struggling a little bit. Thought Dollar Dame should have made his jump before the season started, but it didn't happen. Just going to round out number 22, the Toronto Raptors. Number 23, San Antonio Spurs, followed by 24, Indiana Pacers. Number 25, the Sacramento Kings. Number 26, Houston Rockets. Number 27, the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 28, the Orlando Magic, followed by number 29, the OKC Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder at 29. And then number 30 for Big C's NBA Power Rankings, the Detroit Bad Boys. Make that the Detroit Pistons. So give them all praise for making it there. You gotta stick strong in the season. They made it there to the power rankings. Gonna take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, and the former California Governor's Order Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 19 podcast applications and 4 TV stations. All fair and love and war. I really do love the growth of Big C Sports. Back to the NBA, any unvaccinated player with temporary visa status who leaves the country will be unable to re-enter the United States from Canada. And, for example, a player who is not vaccinated against COVID-19 would be unable to re-enter the United States after playing in Canada. The same applies if an unvaccinated player travels outside of the United States during the NBA All-Star Weekend, and I think it's going to be held in effect, I'm hearing, right around mid-January, somewhere around the 14th or 15th, and then teams are instructed to distribute memos to all players. So that's going to affect people that say they don't want to get vaccinated or that they are vaccinated. Either or, they got to pay attention to the vaccine requirements that's going to prohibit players from going into Canada. Also, players coming back into the United States that leave the United States going into Canada to play the Toronto Raptors. All fair and level war. So we'll see what happens with that. I want to get into Big C's NBA. Actually, I did the Big C NBA. I already did the schedule. And then Big C's power rankings. I updated on the COVID, what's going on with COVID. Now, I want to get into some college basketball. Are you ready for college basketball? Some power rankings for college basketball. The college basketball universe. Went into the college basketball men's top 10 for this week coming up. Which schools are going to do best in men's and women's college basketball, we don't really know. But there's a lot of teams. We know that Gonzaga's been knocked off. UCLA, they lost to Gonzaga. Gonzaga ended up losing to Duke and then Alabama. So teams are going back and forth. And again, this is just the way it is, college basketball, because oftentimes teams will play twice a week. They have a better chance of determining if they get back on the winning streak as opposed to football, where they have to wait 7 days before they play again. So number one in Big C's college basketball power rankings, people don't have to agree, but they're the defending national champion Baylor Bears after winning the national championship. And you could give a team that wins a national championship some praise. Give that some praise. They won the national championship last year. They beat Gonzaga, and now they're back on top. The Baylor Bears, they won it last April. They lost its top 3 players to the NBA draft, and now stepping back to this season, 2022 season, 2021, Drew Scott had other plans. The arrival of 5-star freshman Kendall Brown and Arizona transfer James Akinjo, along with the growth of L.J. Cryer and Matthew Mayer. That's a good program. The Baylor Bears moving back up into the top 10 of Big C's power rankings. Number 2 in the country, Big C's power rankings out of the Pac-12 conference. Under first-year coach, the Arizona Wildcats, under first-year coach Tommy Lloyd. Arizona's been one of the biggest surprises during the first month of December. I would say the Wildcats ranked near the nation's leaders at both ends of the floor. Kristen Koloko and Azula Tabilis anchoring the interior, and Kerr Kresa, as well as Benedict Martruin, provide balance and scoring from the perimeter. They're a very good team, and they had an eye-opening win, a blowout win over number 4 Michigan out of the Big Ten and the Las Vegas in the tournament down in Las Vegas, and they show that they're going to be a challenge in the Pac-12 this year. Number 3, Uconn, in pursuit of his consecutive NCAA tournament appearance. Danny Hurley's Uconn squad is a top 50 and both adjusted offense and defensive efficiency. Hurley's first season with the Huskies, 2016 and 17, the program finished outside the top 80. Now they're making a run and for an NCAA championship. Isn't that something? Uconn's known as a great women's basketball program, but now they're up making some noise on the men's teams as well. Number 4, Texas out of the Big 12 under first-year head coach Chris Beard. The Longhorns have cruised past 6 overmatched opponents while falling to Gonzaga by 12 in Spokane earlier in the year. And then Utah transfer Timmy Allen has emerged as a leading scorer in a deep rotation that also features Courtney Ramey and Trey Mitchell, arrived in Austin by way of UMass. That's a good team down in Texas. They'll make some noise in the Big 12 Conference. Number 5, and Big C's college basketball men's top 20 programs. Tennessee, the Volunteers, freshman guard Kenny Chandler is expected to make a big impact in Knoxville. He's been the leading Volunteer scorer, dropping 15 points a game. Even with Chandler's heroics, it's been the defense that really stood out for Tennessee, the Volunteers, aside from an 18-point loss to Villanova on a neutral floor. Rick Barnes' men's program, they've shown that they can play good basketball, especially down in the SEC. They had a defensive win in a 57-52 win. Actually had an overtime loss to Texas Tech, and that's a program that's also making some noise. I'm going to know number 6 is Duke, and Duke Blue Devils might be Coach Krzyzewski's final season. I would hate to see him step aside, but everything comes to an end at times. The Blue Devils took over the number 1 spot in the AP rankings after beating Gonzaga at the time. That was number 1. But then that short-lived, I guess they didn't get their heads back. That was in Las Vegas. And then they went up and played Ohio State, and they fell to Ohio State. Pablo Banchero is a great player. He's made this case to be the number 1 pick in the June NBA draft. But you got to stay strong in college with classmate Trevor Keels. Has shown lottery potential, but they're a good program. They were just maybe riding too high after they beat Gonzaga and came back down to earth a little bit, but they're still a great team under Coach K, maybe the best college men's basketball coach. They're still going to rank out at number 6 in Big C's top 20 college basketball rankings. Number 7, Kentucky out of the SEC. Freshman Ty Washington Jr. provides a lot of stability in that program. He has also a sweet deal with the name, image, and likeness local dealership with the Porsche dealership. So get that good boy maybe driving a Porsche as he's in college. Kentucky, they've gone off to a good start on the season, 7-1. They have a lot of young talent down there at Rupp Arena. Kentucky's connecting on 39% from 3 and 54% from the floor. Whenever you can do that, you're going to score a lot of points and be in every game, in my opinion. Number 8 out of the Big 12 Conference, that's the Iowa State Cyclones. Perhaps no coach in the country's done more to impress throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. Iowa State coach T.J. Olsenberger, who took a program that had won just 2 games all of last season, including 0 in the Big 12, and has them in the top 20 nationally, and going to put them in at number 8 in my poll. They have a really good program, especially have the quick turnaround they've had. Going to bring you out to the BYU Cougars, part of the West Coast Conference for their basketball program. I wonder what they're going to do when they join the Big 12 in football. But under Mark Pope, this season, the Cougars have already attained their highest ranking in the AP poll, number 12, since November of 2000. Well, that's since November 29th they've been in 2021. And since the days of Jimmy Fredette 11 years ago, Alex Barcelo is hitting most of his shots from the arc. They have a good team that can shoot from the outside. They have early wins over San Diego State, Oregon, and Utah. San Diego State of the Mountain West, Oregon, and Utah out of the Pac-12. They've also been lifted up by the nation's lowest marks for opponents' three-point accuracy, so they have a very good perimeter defense as well. Number 10 in Big C's college basketball power rankings, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Get the Ohio State Buckeyes some praise for coming in number 10 out of the Big Ten. Kind of like that one. E.J. Liddell's performance in Ohio State's 71-66 win over Duke in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, 14 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. That punctuated the juniors' push for All-American honors, dropping 20.4 points per game. And I think when you look at how balanced they are, that's a good program. They have the number 2 and 3 scorers and Zed Key and Kyle Young combined. When you think about this team for Ohio State, they were expected to make a push for the Final Four last year. They got knocked out in the first round. This year, they should get farther than the first round. Number 11 in Big C's NCAA college basketball power rankings, the LSU Tigers will Wade Will. Think about this. The rolling, what they call the Tigers, the Cajun Tigers. The Tigers lost first-round pick Cameron Thomas and 2 of the starters off last year's team, yet they're off to an undefeated start, including 7 wins by 14 or more points. Cincinnati transfer Terry Easton had been one of the SEC's best newcomers despite coming off the bench. I'm telling you, that's a good team down at LSU in the SEC. A team that's just dropped a little bit, in my opinion, but they will climb back on top of the mountain. UCLA, fight. The UCLA Bruins got them at number 12 right now, and they were in the NCAA finals last year. They got knocked off in the Final Four by Gonzaga on a buzzer beater in overtime, and then they came out as my number 1 ranked team. They were number 2 by other pundits, and right now they're at number 12. The big things are still expected from a group that made a surprise run as a number 11 seed from the Final Four to the 2021 Final Four. The Bruins lost by 20 to Gonzaga. Their heads were just not in that game. It's just one of those things on a neutral floor last month. But they defeated Villanova in overtime and have won the rest of the games by double-digit margins. When you think about the leading scorer, preseason All-American, the great Johnny Juzang, has shown that he's more than capable of leading this team, becoming one of the team's best defensive rebounders as a 6'7" junior. UCLA, in my opinion, will make another trip to the Final Four this year. Number 13 in Big C's NCAA college basketball rankings, the Michigan Wolverines. Those good boys going to come in at number 13. They knocked off some good teams along the way. They kicked off the season number 6 squad in the Associated Press top 25. I think about this team in the Big Ten. It's a tough conference. When you think about a squad that returned Hunter Dickinson and added 5-star prospect Caleb Houston, but a Michigan team that's shooting just 35% from three-point line, down 38% a year ago, and they're going to get their groove back again. They're a good team. They were challenged last year. They got knocked out of the March Madness by UCLA, and so the Bruins and Michigan's maybe a little bit lower right now, but they'll bounce back if that makes sense to you. Number 4 at Big C's NCAA college basketball. Number 14 is the Iowa Hawkeyes. They started the season 7-0 after beating Virginia on the road in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, but the Hawkeyes have since lost a couple of games at Purdue and then at home to Illinois. But they will get their groove back. When you think about it, Iowa still has a better position than most expected. The departure of Wooden Award winner Luke Garza and sophomore forward Keegan Murray has been one of their breakout players nationally, going from 7.2 points and 5-point rebounds to 24 points per game and 8 rebounds. You know they're going to have a good team with him. Number 15, Indiana, the Hoosiers. Now, for decades after playing under Bob Knight at Indiana, Mike Woodson was hired as coach at Indiana, and his mission is to restore the program back to the days of Isaiah Thomas when he had that team rolling. But the Hoosiers are a double overtime loss to Syracuse. It was at Syracuse, away from an undefeated start, and then preseason All-American Tracy Jackson Davis has been a sensational superstar in the making. Look forward to them making some grooves. Number 16, Gonzaga, out of the West Coast Conference. Many people's preseason number 1. They were my preseason number 2. Mark Few has been winning championships every year in the tournament, it seems. But after starting this season as a number 1 team and then had wins over Texas and UCLA, Gonzaga was humbled a little bit. A loss to Duke and Las Vegas, preceded by another loss to Alabama just over a week later. Mark Few has had access to both Chet Holmgren and the projected number 1 pick in the NBA draft, and Drew Timme as a National Player of the Year candidate. But maybe they read the headlines, and they'll get into the West Coast Conference. They'll most likely go maybe 1 loss in that conference with a loss maybe to BYU, home and maybe a home or away, one of those. They'll split that. But make no mistake about it, Mark Few will have that program rolling again when the tournament rolls around. But the teams that they've lost to are outside of what they're going to face in their conference. BYU is going to be tough. St. Mary's is tough. Outside of that, they should have a pretty decent run. San Francisco can play tough basketball at times. Number 17 in Big C's college basketball power rankings, the Louisville Cardinals. It's been an uneven start for the Cardinals this season, with a home loss to Furman in the second game of the season and a loss at Michigan State. That was barely competitive in the final 15 minutes. They also beat Mississippi State, Maryland, and North Carolina State all the way from home. They will get their groove back and get things turned around for Louisville, especially as they get into their conference in the ACC. Number 18, Arkansas, the Razorbacks out of the SEC. One of the nation's few remaining unbeaten teams. Arkansas is a good team, has victories over Cincinnati and Kansas State, and has won all of its other games by at least 13 points. That's a good program. When you have to win your games by at least 13 points, it's amazing. When you think about head coach Eric Musselman's best team at Nevada, the Razorbacks excel on defense, and he's been a defensive guru as a coach. Number 19, Virginia Tech. Mike Young's squad is struggling through the tough stretch. The Hokies have lost 3 of their last 4 games and won't get any easier in the matchup against St. Bonaventure ahead of the battles against Duke and North Carolina, the first 2 ACC games this season toward the end of the month. They're going to have to play better. The good news for them is Keith Aluma's 14 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, is going to be a star player for them. Number 20, the final team in Big C's college basketball top 20, the Florida State Seminoles. When you assume Leonard Hamilton will figure things out by the end of the season. But it's been a rocky start for the Seminoles. They were blown out by Florida in the second game of the season, lost by 28 at Purdue at Big Ten Power, and were dropped by Syracuse in Tallahassee. They had to replace several key pieces off of last year's team. But they'll get things rolled around. College basketball, you get to play usually 2 games per week. So by the time we get it figured out, Florida State will get their groove back. So that's Big C's college basketball. Power rankings for top 20. It's all fair and level. Where we're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. In the words of former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 19 podcast apps. Really 20. Also on Facebook, 20 podcast applications all over the universe. We appreciate that. Are you ready for some football? Of course, you are some college All-Americans. This is Big C Sports, first-team college All-American football players. It's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. You got Alabama, Cincinnati, Georgia, and Michigan. They're going to play in the 2021 National Football Championship for D1 teams, and they'll have a chance to decide who's the number 1 team in the country. But when you think about all of these top teams that are playing for national championships, I'm going to give Big C's thoughts on the top football players. I'm going to go with the offense because offensive players will tell you offense wins championships, if that makes sense to you. Number 1, they're going to start with the quarterback. That's Bryce Young, Alabama Crimson Tide, already won 2 national championships in high school with Mater Dei of Santa Ana. When you think about some of the older players, from Joe Namath, Bart Starr, Kenny Stabler, and Tua Tagovailoa, as well as Mac Jones, all played quarterback at Alabama, but Bryce Young might be the first one to win the Heisman Trophy. I really like this kid. I said he'd be the Heisman Trophy winner before the season started. So give me some praise on that and give Bryce Young some praise. Going to go to the running back position, Kenneth Walker III. I'm going to tell you, before I even go there, would you believe that as a starter, Bryce Young, he completed 68% of his passes for 4,322 yards and 43 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. I had to get that in because in the SEC championship game, 421 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 41-21 beatdown of number 1 Georgia at the time. It's that SEC record and doing so. So I wanted to really get him in there. He's amazing. I'm going to go to the running back position. Running back Kenneth Walker III out of the Michigan State Spartans. Wake Forest transfer was the key to the Spartans' revival under second-year coach Mel $95 million Tucker. That's a good contract. And Walker ranked second in the FBS in rushing, 1,636 yards to go with 18 rushing touchdowns. He's a great player and really carried the ball for the Michigan State Spartans. Also running back he's going to share that duty with and Big C Sports All-American Sean Tucker, the Syracuse Orangeman. Not since Jim Brown have you seen a guy run the ball like this on the 60th anniversary of Ernie Davis' Heisman Trophy winning season. Tucker emerged as a star for the Syracuse Orange. The freshman broke Joe Moore's 42-year-old school rushing record. When you think about it, for a season, 1,496 yards, set another mark with 9 100-yard games, got his chest into the wind quite a bit for the Syracuse Orangemen. Wide receiver, you got to have someone to catch the ball downfield. Jordan Addison for the Pittsburgh Panthers. And quarterback Kenny Pickett, nearly unstoppable this season. Pickett's actually up for the Heisman Trophy also out of the Pittsburgh Panthers program. They won the ACC championship, 11 victories in the season for the first time since 1981. That's a good old boy that can catch the ball when you get the ball near his hands. Wide receiver also, out of the Big Ten, David Bell, out of the Purdue Boilermakers, a star wide receiver, more than answered the bell against top competition this season. In 3 games against top 5 opponents, Bell had 33 receptions, 560 yards, and 2 scores, and Purdue's upset of then number 2 Iowa, and then number 3 Michigan State also had 11 catches with more than 200 yards and a touchdown in each game. That good old boy is ready for the NFL. At tight end, you saw him in the SEC championship game, Brock Boris for the Georgia Bulldogs. When you think about how good he's been, he's from a hometown of Napa, California. How did he end up running past Cal Berkeley and Stanford to run down to Georgia? It's all fair and love and war, but the Bulldogs didn't have to wait for him to deliver. A 6'4", 230-pound freshman. Bowers leads Georgia with 47 catches, 791 yards. That's a good boy that can catch the football and goes over the middle like the great Jay Novacek back in the day. Not as good as Tony Gonzalez, but you can see he's going to have NFL potential. Offensive line, got to go with the offensive tackle Evan Neal out of Alabama, the Crimson Tide. 6'7", 360 pounds, was a steadying force for Alabama's offensive line. That was maligned many times this year, but hey, they won the SEC championship, and now they're ranked number 1 in the country again. He had moved from right tackle to the left side to replace first-round pick Alex Leatherwood. So all they do is bring him in and ship him off to the NFL. Offensive guard, Zion Johnson, Boston College Eagles. Didn't start playing football until his senior season in high school, but he has developed into one of the best offensive linemen in the country. Allowed just 1 sack in 2,288 career snaps with Boston College. Isn't that amazing? That's someone that the NFL quarterbacks would love to have on the line. Center, Tyler Linderbaum, Iowa Hawkeyes, big bruising type of lineman, moved from the defensive line to the center position after freshman season. He will be remembered as one of the best players in Iowa history, a 2-time finalist for the Remington Trophy, which is given to the best center in the FBS. Remember, he moved from the defensive side of the ball to the offensive side, and as a center, you got to call plays. A lot of people aren't familiar with that, but he's a great player. Offensive guard down in the state of Texas, Kenyon Green. Texas A&M Aggies, the only returning starter from the Aggies' celebrated offensive line in 2020. He started 35 consecutive games. He was named SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week 3 times this season. And the Aggies' offensive MVP, led by Green, reshuffled O-line, did not allow a sack in A&M's 31-48. It was 41-38 upset of then number 1 Alabama's all fair and level war. Also on the offensive tackle side of the ball, Charles Cross out of Mississippi State, the Bulldogs as a left tackle in the Bulldogs system. Coach Mike Leach, pass-happy offense that came from Washington State. Cross is under more pressure than perhaps any other offensive lineman in the FBS because he has to always protect a pass-happy offense. He allowed just 5 pressures and only 1 sack and 682 pass blocks. That guy is good old boy, ready for the NFL. All-purpose, Jameson Williams, Alabama Crimson Tide. When you think about it, another big play threat from the transfer portal. Now, Williams is transferred from the Ohio State Buckeyes, has 68 receptions, 1,445 yards and 15 touchdowns. His 21.3 yards per catch were second most among FBS players, and having Bryce Young throw the ball to him, you know he had a good quarterback throwing to him. When you think about this also, Williams had only 3 drops and 107 targets. He was third in the FBS with 690 yards after the catch. That sounds like Jerry Rice, if that makes sense to you. So I want to say to all you offensive players that say offense wins championships, give offense some praise. Give the offensive side some praise. Before we get to the Big C's, defensive All-Americans for college football. Starting with defensive end, Aiden Hutcherson for the Michigan Wolverines. He's a big, strong sack man if you look at that. Hutcherson's return after breaking his ankle last November, it lifted the Wolverines to the college football playoff and earned him a spot as a Heisman Trophy finalist. As a defensive player, potentially the number 1 pick in the 2022 draft, the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year had 58 tackles, 14 sacks, which were a Michigan record, and had a season-high 7 tackles and 3 sacks in a 42-27 upset of Ohio State. That's a good player that you can put on the defensive line for your defensive tackle. Jordan Davis-Hill get the play outside of the good old boy from Michigan for the Georgia Bulldogs. Davis stat line might seem a little bit not impressive. 28 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hurries, and 2 sacks. But the junior impact for Georgia's top-ranked scoring defense was much more than that. He's 6'3", 340 pounds, and commanded double-team blocks on nearly every snap. That's impressive. Only a junior. Defensive end, Jermaine Johnson II, Florida State Seminoles. He transferred from Georgia. Could have been playing in the national championship playoffs this year, but he transferred from Georgia to Florida State to become an every down player, and the decision has paid off for him. He was named the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. His only season with the Seminoles, he had 70 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a defensive touchdown. That good a boy can play some defense. Linebacker, Will Anderson Jr., Alabama Crimson Tide. Bryce Young will most likely win the Heisman Trophy, according to me. But on the defensive side of the ball, you have Anderson as the Crimson Tide's best player on the defense. Probably the best player in the FBS. Anderson led the country 15.5 sacks, 31.5 tackles for loss, which was 9.5 more than anyone else. Need I say more? NFL is waiting for him. Linebacker, Nkebe Dean out of Georgia, the Bulldogs. That good a boy. Georgia defense was solid because of him. Dean tied for the team lead with 61 tackles to go with 5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. The Buckets Award winner as the top linebacker in the FBS. Dean is also rated as a number 8 prospect overall and number 1 inside linebacker available for 2022. Another great player, if you watch the Pac-12 championship, linebacker Devin Lloyd, the Utah Utes, a 2-time finalist for the Buckets Award. Lloyd helped the Utes win their first Pac-12 championship by leading the team with 106 tackles, 22 tackles for loss, and 4 interceptions. His 22 tackles for loss were the second most among FBS players. A junior had 13 tackles in back-to-back games against BYU and Utah State. Actually, BYU and San Diego State. As safety in high school, Lloyd is ranked number 25th prospect. This guy should run to the NFL next year. You had 22 tackles for loss, second among FBS. He's a junior. Entering the NFL draft. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, Oklahoma State Cowboys, the best player on one of the most improved defenses in the FBS. Rodriguez led the Pokies with 112 tackles to go with 14 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 9 quarterback pressures, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. After allowing 23 points per game in 2020, the Cowboys, their defense got better. Only gave up 16.8 points per game this season. That's why, they were right there to win in the Big 12 championship, but they were stopped at the goal line, not because of him. Cornerback Ahmad Gardner out of Cincinnati, the Bearcats, he'll be in the Final Four going up against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Gardner's nickname is called the Sauce. He was 6 because of his affinity for dipping sauces. Opposing quarterbacks rarely double-dipped against Gardner throughout his career in Cincinnati. Going into last week's ACC title game, he allowed just 14 receptions, 14 on 32 targets in 12 games, and never allowed a touchdown in his career. That's amazing. Had 35 tackles and then 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, helping the Bearcats finish unbeaten this year. You got another cornerback that can play. University of Auburn cornerback Roger Mccrary for the Auburn Tigers. Committed to South Alabama in high school because he beloved that program, and then ended up at Auburn. Auburn coaches finally came around to offer him a senior season, allowing him to develop one of the best lockdown cornerbacks in the country. He had 49 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 2 interceptions, and 14 pass breakups. When you look at a safety, I really like this kid. He's a safety out of University of Oregon, the Ducks. Rome McKinley III out of Oregon. And he's a ball-hawking safety. He led the FBS with 6 interceptions and a pass-happy conference in the Pac-12. Was second on the team, 72 tackles. He picked off 4 passes in 3 games in September, including 1 at the Oregon 35-yard line that sealed the Ducks' 35-28 win over Ohio State and Columbus. And I think he's going to be ready for the NFL. Another safety, Jalen Petrie, the Baylor Bears, winners of the Big 12 Conference. He was named Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. At the time, he was the only player in the FBS with at least 3 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. A hybrid safety linebacker. He led the Big 12, 17.5 tackles for loss. He was third on the team with 55 tackles to go with 2 sacks. and then 5 pass breakups. He's the reason why Baylor won the Big 12 conference. You need a kicker. You got to get these kicked in the right spot. Noah Ruggles, Ohio State Buckeyes, a transfer from North Carolina. He led the FBS in kicking, scoring 122 points this season. He was 18 for 19 in field goals, all made of 68 extra points. Made them all. And sometimes it's windy where he's playing up in Ohio. A senior from Odessa, Florida, he made 4 field goals in back-to-back victories against Penn State and Nebraska, becoming the first Buckeye kicker to do so. He went 14 and 15 on field goal tries inside 40 yards and 4 for 4 on attempts outside of 40 yards. Houston Cougars, kick returner Marcus Jones for the Cougars. Jones transferred to Houston from Troy in 2019, a record-breaking impact on returns. Also a pretty good cornerback for the Cougars, too. He has 9 career touchdown returns. 9! Sounds like Desmond Howard, doesn't it? 9 career touchdowns and 6 kickoff returns on 3 punts. And think about it, he's tied for the FBS in career league with Boise State's Avery Williams from 2017 to 2020 and Washington's Deontay Pettis 2014 to 2017. He's a good player to get the ball to. When you think about it, Jones' total kickoff returns for touchdowns, he's tied for 6th most in the NCAA since 1976. No return was more important than his 100-yarder for his score and his 17 seconds left and a 44-37 victory over SMU on October 30th. That's Big C Sports, college football, All-American team. You heard it first on Big C Sports, the All-Americans. I wish you all nothing but the best. You get the chance to play in the NFL, that's when you get paid. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, you sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. With all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I eat so many Big C burgers, that's why I'm light on my feet. They make me rumble in my tummy. They rumble in my tummy. Big C Sports is having fun. Oh, I'm so good. It's all fair. I love the All-American team. Everybody, please stay safe. My beautiful mother always says there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, pick up the phone and ask for help. Because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you. We appreciate you. I hope you have a super fantastic day.